So it's 5 p.m. on March 22nd, 2022. I want to remind everyone that as we continue this meeting, we are live captioning this meeting. So please look in the chat window of our WebEx meeting site where you will find a link. Please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning. So at this time, I want to call to order the March 22, 2022 work session of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board. For the record, I will call a roll call vote of board members that may be in attendance for this work session. I'll start with our student trustee. Mr. Evans, are you present this afternoon? Ms. Bittersmith?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. McGrath? I'm showing her present.
Present.
Jane, are you? Okay, thank you. Dr. Narini?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Thor?
Present.
I understand Ms. Nguyen is not going to be with us during today's work session, and with my presence, we have 6 board members present, 1 absent this afternoon. So today we're going to work through another update on the fiscal year 23 budget. Ms. Granillo, I believe, is one of our primary presenters. And before I turn this to Dr. Gonzalez, Ms. Granillo, are you going to set the tone for us today with a song, work session song?
Well, I will try. I'm probably one of the least musically inclined folks on this call. So I did do some searching on songs and tried to avoid kind of maybe the more common ones we pick. So I did come across one, though, that is called Money in the Bank, which is a country hit by John Anderson. And the description of the song is that the narrator in this country hit doesn't have a lot of money, but considers himself very rich because he has the girl of his dreams. And the parallel that I kind of drew from that is that even with financial challenges that Maricopa has and are facing, our love for our students and our mission is very apparent throughout our entire system, something of which I have always appreciated for the time I've worked with Maricopa.
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you for setting the tone as we work through the budget conversation and really aim to do our best for our students and all of those affiliated with our system. So with that, Dr. Gonzalez, over to you.
Thank you, President Sullivan and members of the board, members of CEC and guests that are with us here late this afternoon or early evening. Again, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you. Boy, I was just thinking that Ms. Granillo really set the bar for us on naming songs. Now having to provide historical reference and context behind them, I think it makes it more challenging for us. So thank you, Kim. We appreciate that. And moving on, we have a financial planning and budget office work session. As you indicated, this is, I believe it's our 3rd time coming to the board to talk about our budget. And as we approach the end of this academic year, it also points to the fact that we are nearing the end of the process for developing a budget for the next fiscal year so that we can do our month of public notice and then also, coming together and having an opportunity for the board to vote on a final product. So with that, I will turn it over to Kim. I believe she is the primary presenter, and if not, I'm sure that she will introduce her members of her team that will be providing assistance. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you, President Sullivan.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. And so around the song and the needing to provide some interpretation, I was somewhat afraid if I just said money in the bank, that might be the wrong message that I wanted to send with the presentation. But regardless, I'm not sure how high the bar really is set. But thank you so much.
Understood. Just giving you a hard time, Kim.
But good afternoon, President Sullivan, Dr. Gonzalez, members of the governing board, members of CEC, colleagues, and guests. As you've heard, my name is Kim Granillo. I am the interim chief financial officer for Maricopa. And tonight we want to, Elsa, if you can go to the next slide, please. On our agenda, we've got a few things for tonight's budget review. The first thing we want to do is just spend a quick reminder on what the budget development process has been for fiscal 23, since it was a little bit different than for 22. Today, we'll also provide an update on the general fund, as we spent quite a bit of time in January's work session talking in more detail about the general fund. So today we'll provide an update. We're also going to look at the remaining funds for Maricopa, which do include auxiliary, restricted, HERF funds, which are part of restricted, and then also capital funds. And then we'll also look at the remaining steps for the fiscal 23 budget. And my hope is that with today's presentation, it will kind of complete the budget picture for the governing board and for everyone listening for the fiscal 23 budget, and that will prepare us for the budget schedule that will have a little bit more detail in it as far as expenses goes, types of categories and such. And the board will receive that next month in April for the consideration and adoption in May. And so with that, we'll go to the next slide, please. And this, again, is just a quick review of how shared governance was used to develop the fiscal 23 budget and how more transparency was added to the process. As we talked about in January, there were options for revenues and expenditures evaluated by the Advisory Budget Council. Recommendations were then provided to the Chancellor. The preferred recommendation was reviewed and supported by the Chancellor's Executive Committee, and that recommendation is the basis for the fiscal year 23 budget that you've seen a bit of in January, and then you'll see more of today. So with that, we're going to start with a look at the general fund. And again, this is an update from what you've seen previously in the January presentation. And again, it's primarily what you've seen. The one exception is that we did have final numbers for property taxes from new construction, and that's the second line there. They came in a little bit higher than we had been projecting at $13.8 million. We were looking at estimates of about 12.7. I want to point out that the federal grant line there is her lost revenue of the 10.9 million, which is proposed for fiscal 23. That will bridge some funding issues that we've also talked about. And just a reminder that tuition and fees doesn't reflect any anticipated enrollment growth from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23. Again, something that we've talked about previously. And so with the next slide, we'll then look at the uses of those resources. And so we started out again with the kind of the balance from the previous slide of total resources of 948 million for fiscal 23. We have expenditures planned of 726.9 million. And then from there, we apply the budget reduction of 1.5%, equivalent to about 10.9 million. We are going to reclassify workforce expenses to Proposition 207, again, as bridge funding, and that's about a $5 million reduction out of the general fund expenditures. And then required and new proposed expenditures of 27.1 million, which do include required expenses such as compensation changes due to policies, increases in insurance premiums, additional funds for presidential scholarships, and then also does include the 25.8 million for year 2 of the strategic compensation plan. We do have then an estimated ending fund balance about the middle of the page of about $210 million. And then we do have some reserves on those funds. The first one being the financial stability and operating reserves at 16%. You'll probably remember that the board policy is set at 10%. And starting last year or the year before that, we added about another 6% to get us to a total reserve amount of 16%. And that generally equates to about 2 months worth of operating expenditures. And then again, for reserves, we've got about 38.7 million set aside for system-wide strategic efforts. You may recall also that those were dollars that came from HERF, which we recovered for lost revenues from fiscal 21, and we designated for those system-wide strategic efforts, which are under consideration now, which could be around process and system changes for admission, system support, advising, et cetera. And then we do have a college carry forward of 25.4 million. And so we end up then with an estimated uncommitted fund balance of about $34 million. If we could go to the next slide, Elsa, I wanted to share some high-level information about the general fund budget reductions. Again, we've got 1.5% reduction in expenses in the general fund for all colleges in the district office divisions. I will share that some of the colleges and divisions are still working through their reductions. They have a little bit more time before we put the budget schedule, finalize, I should say, the budget schedule. And the high-level categories of the reductions to date are eliminating transfers to capital. You may recall that one of our budget strategies for 23 was to eliminate the option for colleges and divisions to transfer up to 1.5% of their general fund budget to Fund 7 for capital purposes. And we're going to instead backfill that with a capital allocation for colleges and divisions. And you'll actually see that in later slides where we talk about our capital program. So it will eliminate those transfers out of the general fund. Colleges and divisions are looking to eliminate some vacant positions. Some are recently vacated, some are long-time vacancies that they have not filled. It will look to reduce contingencies, which also results in a little bit reduced flexibility in college and district office division budgets. Reduction in part-time wage line items as well as adjunct faculty line items. And then most oftentimes this can delay or limit refreshes of technology and furniture. And some of where that comes from is the colleges and divisions will now look to use potentially some vacancy savings to fund additional part-time wages or adjunct faculty if those are determined to be needed during 23, instead of using those same vacancy savings for refreshing of technology and furniture. So it just becomes balancing for the colleges and the divisions for the year. And with that, then we'll move to the auxiliary fund, which is the next slide. And I will share that much of the revenues and expenses are anticipated to be fairly consistent from fiscal year 22 to 23, as you can see from the lack of large variances in that last column. I will share that one question might be on the transfers in from the general fund in Prop 207 of $9 million for fiscal 23 and 8.8 for fiscal 22. That is primarily the Skill Center operational support. You may recall that in the fiscal 22 budget, as a budget strategy, we shifted that operating support, the annual operating support from the general fund into Prop 207. And so the Skill Centers are accounted for in the auxiliary fund. So essentially we take the funds from Prop 207 and the restricted fund and transfer them into the auxiliary fund to support those transfers, which the Skill Centers will use for operations. So that's the primary activity that is in the auxiliary fund. And next up is the restricted fund on the next slide. And on this slide, we're going to present the resources. There is a footnote at the bottom because you'll probably notice we don't provide kind of a corresponding slide for expenditures. And for all intents and purposes for the restricted fund, in most cases, the expenses are reflective of the revenues or at the same level as the revenues. So we did not include that additional information in this presentation. But proposed for fiscal 23, you can see that we've got grants and contracts, federal, state, and local. We are estimating that the institutional portion of HERF that will be used in fiscal 23 is about $94 million. We did include a line item for STEM funding from the state at $8.6 million, and that is what was recommended in the governor's budget. So we don't have final numbers yet until the legislature passes the budget for the state, but we did include that as a line item. We are anticipating about $37.4 million from Prop 207, and that is sales tax and fund balance. We do have a slide specifically for 207 and another one for Prop 301 that will provide more detail on those two funding sources or programs, if you will. And then the next section on this slide is about financial aid. And so that first line is federal student aid. We do have about $13 million remaining in HERF funding for student aid. And then again, scholarships, and then LEAP, which is state and institutional match, which is a student financial aid program. And so with that, we expect to have total restricted resources of about $333.8 million for fiscal 23. And again, the expenditure levels should be about the same as the revenues. And so with that, we'll go to the next slide, Elsa, which is looking at a little bit more detail for Proposition 301 monies. You will also see here that we don't anticipate significant changes from fiscal 22 to 23. One line item that I think I'd like to point out is about the middle of the expenditure line. You'll see college and workforce programs and equipment at a funding level of $9.9 million. And that I just want to share is includes an annual allocation to the colleges, as well as remaining amounts awarded to colleges in past years that are for specific programs, innovative programs, new programs that they have carryover balances. And so that is a total then of $9.9 million to the colleges. If I go back up a couple of lines, you'll see that we do continue to fund the 39 original workforce faculty positions out of Prop 301. You may remember there was an effort some time ago to, well, actually over the past many, many years, to kind of march, if you will, some of those faculty positions over to operational funding. And we did make a decision a couple of years ago to put them back into Prop 301 to use some of the balances that were available in Prop 301. And at this point, they'll stay there until we get a little bit more stabilization in the general fund. And then we'll consider what our options are around moving them back. And with this approach, you'll see that we do anticipate an uncommitted fund balance at the end of 23 of just around $100,000. So with that then, oh, actually, before you move to the next slide, Elsa, one of the other things I wanted to share about this, and this will apply to the next slide as well, but I wanted to make sure I point out that the Workforce Funding Council is working or continuing its evaluation of the current allocation approach, and that will include Prop 301 and Prop 207, as well as any state STEM funding. And so there may be changes recommended to start in fiscal 24 coming out of that Workforce Funding Council, and there may be recommended strategic changes, if any, for the use of these particular funds. So with that, then we'll go to Prop 207 and look at a little bit more detail there. So I think we've been estimating the revenue for Prop 207 to be around $16 million. For fiscal 22, we are anticipating it will come in higher than that at about $19.4 million. I will share, though, the footnote at the bottom. There, about $2 million of that is a distribution which came from 2021 sales. It was a timing issue in how the Treasurer's Office calculated the distribution. But we are anticipating that we may have as much as $21 million in revenue for fiscal 23, along with an estimated fund balance of $16.4 million for total resources in 23 of about $37.4 million. We'll talk about that balance in a minute. I want to talk about the categories of expenditures that we anticipate for this new funding. The first one, of course, is the Skill Center support, which we talked about a minute ago. We do have $5 million planned for bridge funding from Fund 1 from the general fund, and those would be workforce or STEM expenses reclassified from the general fund. Then again, the Workforce Funding Council is working to determine how the funds will be spent, but the recommendation from prior task forces is to look at it in a few different buckets, and that's what you see on the slide in front of you, and those buckets will be for operations, for innovation, and support for recently launched programs are the three areas in particular. And so again, the Workforce Funding Council will be reviewing how those dollars get allocated to colleges, whether they're based on proposals and what metrics and outcomes are expected from those proposals, things like that. Around the innovation space, essentially it'll be new projects and partnerships that develop or demonstrate a potential ROI, potentially meeting workforce needs with high-wage jobs. Some examples we have currently and most recent past are, in essence, the artificial intelligence program, ours being the first in the country, looking at boot camps for electrical wiring with Boeing, semiconductor technician programs with Intel and TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, also looking at IT and advanced manufacturing institutes. So we wanted to have some dollars available for items that we know are coming or items that we think may be coming to us. And then I want to come back again to the reserve line of $5 million. And this kind of ties in also to the estimated fund balance of $16.4 million we think we're going to carry over from 22. So we wanted to make sure we had a line item for reserves in this particular funding source. And the primary reason for that is because we really don't have any trending information to tell us whether or not our estimated revenue of $21 million for 23 is accurate or how accurate it is. So we want to resist the urge to allocate out every dollar just in case our estimates are off and are potentially overstated. So that's part of the reason why we don't anticipate any large expenses for fiscal 22. And the fact that we're nearing the end of March, we don't anticipate we'll have a lot of activity for 22. I will point out that we didn't receive the bulk of the 22 monies until December. So we, again, are working with the Workforce Funding Council to determine the best and most strategic way in which to spend those funds. I do think as we go forward and as we get some data under our belts and we have a better comfort level with the revenues that will be coming in, we'll be able to look at them a bit more like Prop 301 and be able to have some solid allocations and expectations for those dollars. This approach is not unlike what we did with Prop 301 back in 2000 when it was a new program and based on sales taxes, which as much as we think we can predict or the state thinks they can predict sales taxes, it's not always so easy. So anyway, so hopefully that's a good solid approach to the 207 sources and uses. So with that, then also we can go to the next slide, which is HERF funding, Higher Education Emergency Relief Funding from Department of Education. This is federal funding, just as a reminder. And so we've just provided the recap. Total funding for all of Maricopa is about just under $333 million. Uses to date as of early March is about $238.5 million. I will point out that those uses do include lost revenues recovered from 21, as well as estimated lost revenues to be recovered for fiscal 22. And that gives us a remaining award of just under $94.5 million. I am happy to share we have finally received some information from the U.S. Department of Education, and we got word just prior to spring break that all of our HERF awards will automatically be granted a no-cost extension and will have a new end date of June 30th of 2023. So it's even a little bit later than where we thought a one-year no-cost extension would take us. We were anticipating April or May of 2023, but we're very happy that we don't even have to request the extensions at this point. We have been cautioned that we will not receive updated award notices until April of 22 or later. That's probably of no consequence to anybody but me and my team. And then just as a reminder, the annual report for calendar year 2021 is due no later than May 6th of 22 and is very similar to the calendar year 2020 reporting. I just thought I would take advantage of the opportunity to share that information as part of my presentation. So with that, then also we'll go to the next slide, which is a review of the capital program. And so you'll see, as similar to the other schedules, we have fiscal year 22 estimated actuals in the first numeric column. Proposed for 23 is the second one. There, again, the tax levy, including the new shift or the shift for new taxes for 23 is expected to be around 36.3 million. Very little in other revenues or resources coming in. If we look to the expenditure section, you'll see that we've got capital expenditures by category, and we'll look at a little bit more detail on the expenditure lines of 62.6 million. Additional district-wide college capital expenditures of 17.3 million, and then transfers to the general fund, which are used to fund our ERP licenses, our enterprise system licenses of $4.7 million, which we've done for a bit of time now. And the anticipated then ending fund balance for fiscal 23 is estimated to be $63.1 million. One thing I'll point out, actually, no, I'm not going to point out on this slide. We'll look at it for the next slide. So also, if we could go to the next one. We have two groupings of expenditures, and that first one is capital expenditures by category. And these are primarily overseen by facilities planning and development. And these are categories that you've seen for quite some time now in Maricopa's capital budget. And those categories include things such as district-wide roofing and paving, annual major and emergency maintenance, and we certainly are continuing the funding for those programs. And then you'll also see towards the bottom of that section, deferred maintenance is expected to continue at a funding level of about $25 million, which is what we had planned. The next grouping is additional district-wide and college capital expenditures. So the first line there is the one I wanted to point out, and those are college and DO division capital allocations. That $10.9 million should look familiar, and that is the amount that we're going to backfill the 1.5% reduction out of the general fund with capital allocations to all of the colleges and the district office divisions. And so with that, that gives a total district-wide additional capital expenditures of $17.3 million, and that does tie to the schedule previously. The last thing I'll point out is that last line course equipment of $2 million. This continues the process we've had in place now for a couple of years, where we are funding course equipment costing between $5,000 and $20,000 with a transfer from operating funds rather than course fees. And this was per the revised course fee guidelines. And that is, again, included at the $2 million level. Next slide, please, Elsa. And this is a more detailed look and a longer term look at the capital deferred maintenance program. And this schedule should also look familiar to you. It is one that we have been presenting really since we started the program. We did cut off the previous 2 years, and we are starting with fiscal 23 and showing up through fiscal 27. And it breaks it down by the different types of activities and project costs by discipline: plumbing, exterior shell, structural, electrical. And then the bottom section presents it all by investment criteria, again, which should be familiar, such as asset preservation, reliability, safety, program improvement, et cetera. And so this is just continuing the 5-year look of the deferred maintenance program, including the number of projects estimated to be about 1,800 projects over the next 5 years. I will also point out that starting in fiscal 24, we do have an inflation factor of 3.5% built into the project costs. You might remember that we did a review last year, I believe, and we looked at projects planned for 22 and 23, and it was estimated that the savings achieved from projects earlier in the program, somewhere around efficiencies and being able to do more than one project at a time that was similar and being able to save some costs there. All of those savings then would offset anticipated inflation for fiscal year 22 and 23 projects. And so that is the reason why we did not include an inflation factor until projects beginning in 24. And we will obviously continue to monitor all of this and revise it as we go forward and as needed. And if we go to the next slide, Elsa, this is a graphical representation of the capital funding program, with the first bar or blue bar being the revenues anticipated for the year. The green bar or second bar of each section is a representation of the expenditures, and then ending balance with the tax shift. And I think you'll see through most of this, we are using ending balances along with new revenues to make significant strides in our capital programs, which we've talked about significantly over the past several years. And I do apologize for the typo. The title on this should be fiscal year 22 through 28, not through 27. So if we go to the next slide, Elsa, this is a chart showing the tax rates actual and projected with the tax shift. And again, this is something that we continue to provide each year. And really the point of this and that bright yellow line there is that that adjusted tax rate column, which is the third column from the right, shows that even with the tax shift, the adjusted total tax rate continues to decline and still allows us to capture some of that property tax revenue that we would have otherwise used or had previously used for debt service for our bond program, and we're able to repurpose that for capital purposes. And we did include a note that shows the impact of this year's tax adjustment, or the tax adjustment for fiscal 23 is sitting at a $1 per $100,000 home. So with that, then also we'll go to the next slide and talk very briefly about next steps. We've talked about this a little bit before, but just a reminder, in April of 22, the board will receive the budget schedule, which is essentially the little bit thicker budget document for fiscal 23 for first read. And then in May at the regular meeting, we will have a public hearing for the Truth in Taxation to cover the tax shift, and then also for budget adoption. And these are the final steps in the fiscal year 23 budget development and adoption process. One final comment I have before I turn it over for questions is, we have received questions within Maricopa and then also from governing board members around very, different criteria, different metrics, such like that. I just wanted to share that we do have those questions. We are working on pulling the data and doing the analysis we need to do in order to answer the questions. It's just taking us a bit of time, and as soon as we have those answers, we will share them with the governing board, whether that be through an email or through a work session later this fiscal year. So I just wanted to make sure the board was assured that we are working on that information. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Granillo. On the questions, I guess, could you then, when you do send those out to board members, it would be appreciated if you could put it as a FAQ page, and with the question and then the answer, so it could all be consolidated in one place for us to understand. And there may be an opportunity to add a few more. Do you anticipate when you would have that ready for us to look at?
No, I don't. Some of the questions I'm sure seem very straightforward, but the answer isn't necessarily as straightforward to get. So that's what we're struggling a little bit with, and we want to make sure we have quality information. And I will absolutely be happy to put it together with the question and the answer and make sure that is shared broadly.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we understand you are working towards that end, just wanting to be curious about when that might be. And so we'll anticipate that when you're ready, with enough time for us to accommodate a first read, et cetera, as we go through this. Before I ask for board questions, Dr. Gonzalez, do you have any comments you'd like to add to this discussion?
No comments at this time. If maybe a question in case it doesn't come up by a board member, but Kim, with the no-cost extension that we get to the HERF dollars, I believe it may have been asked, and I cannot recall the response that was provided. Does that no cost apply to any expenses that occur outside of the fiscal year 22 period, or can they also be applied to the upcoming budget? So and if you don't have the answer to that, then we may want to find that, but I'm sure that may come up.
Yes, so the no cost extension will allow us to spend the funds, recover any revenues, any activity that we want to up through June 30th of 2023.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Sure. So with that, I'm going to start with board members. Again, we'll do the alpha thing. Ms. Bittersmith, I know you're in and out for today's meeting, but are you present and do you have any questions? Okay, I'll come back to her possibly. Mrs. McGrath.
Thank you. I keep getting comments from taxpayers, especially out here where I live, where taxes are very important. And they're wanting to know, since we've lost 75% of our students, how much have we reduced the budget? Is it I know it's not an exact correlation, but they're interested in that. And also, while we're talking about the budget, I have asked several times for what it costs us in attracting new students and what money we're spending on all of those programs. And I would really appreciate seeing that, because it doesn't seem that attracting new students with our money is doing us a bit of good. So I'd like to look at that and perhaps suggest some programs be cut. Thank you.
Ms. Grenier, Dr. Gonzalez, do you have any comments to that?
Yes, Mrs. Sullivan and Mrs. McGrath, I do want to share that your question about what are we spending to attract new students is exactly one of the questions we are working to answer.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mrs. McGrath, at this point?
No, thank you.
Dr. Narini?
No questions. Just a big thank you for for providing such a clear outline of the budget and all the work that's gone into it and all the work that continues to go into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
I echo what Dr. Narini said. Thank you for your help. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Dr. Thor?
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. A couple questions and a couple comments. On the Maricopa Corporate College, we're budgeting, again, $1.4 million. Is there a projection of when the corporate college will become self-supporting?
Mrs. Sullivan and Dr. Thor, I don't know that we have an estimate for that yet. They are generating revenue, which we are using, which we've kept in the auxiliary fund. And we will use some of that to fund some activities in the general fund. And the line that you see in Prop 301 funding is around their operations. And I think that's something that we probably can delve into a little bit further, a little bit later, because I think that's something that the Workforce Funding Council is looking at as well, as to what the purpose and the outcomes of MCOR are.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I just have a recollection that we received a presentation, it probably was 4 or 5 years ago now, that did show them reaching a point where they would be self-sustaining. My other question relates to our policy on reserves. And Kim, you had indicated that our policy is 10%, yet we're budgeting at 16%, and I don't argue with that at all. I'm just wondering whether or not the board needs to be thinking about changing its policy, or whether we like having the flexibility of increasing or decreasing the reserve as needed.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
President
Dr.
Sullivan,
Ms.
Dr.
Granillo.
Thornton. Yes, so that is a good question. You will probably recall, we were at 8% financial stability reserves for many, many years, I think since
Right.
1994 even. And then we upped it to the 10%, I think a couple of years ago. And I think that the idea around the extra 6% and not having it built into the board policy was truly about flexibility.
Right.
And
Okay.
we do provide the burn report every month, so absolutely the board would see if we were encroaching even on that 6%.
And then I have a comment on Prop 207. I'm probably more optimistic than you are, and I can understand why the fiscal staff wants to be more conservative when it comes to budget projections. But I suspect that your estimated revenues for Prop 207 are probably understated rather than overstated. But I also don't argue with the fact of keeping a balance in that account until we do have more history. And my last question, Dr. Gonzalez already asked regarding our ability to expend HERF monies through June 30th, 2023. Kim, thank you and the staff for a very helpful and very clear presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Granillo. I wanted to also express my appreciation for a clear report and giving the board an opportunity to ask questions for that. I think as we anticipate what you will present in the fact document, that will provide greater clarity and both indicate what questions the board continues to have around the budget piece. We have some important work coming forward as you actually do present a final budget to us in reading through the detail. And I know it's much easier to accommodate our questions and make shifts or tweaks prior to we get that first read. So it may behoove us to have an opportunity to look over those questions and then meet again if we need greater clarity than what we receive in writing. My questions were pretty much aligned and answered this afternoon. Is there going to be, as you're looking forward, accommodation for any other inflationary costs that may be attached to our expenditures, particularly capital expenditures? Is that with the market fluctuating so much these days and the raise of interest rates, do you see an impact to our budget in the short term on that as a result of those shifts?
President Sullivan, I don't think so at this point. I think that, that's primarily in the capital space, and I think
Right.
facilities planning and development have done a phenomenal job of managing the funds that they have available to them and looking to try to find any and every efficiency and cost saving method they can to, group projects together that will allow us to save some monies on bulk purchases and those kinds of things. And, they did that through the 2004 bond program as well. So I think they are very well positioned to continue to use our dollars and our taxpayer dollars specifically as wisely and effectively as possible.
Right. Thank you. Board members, any last question for Ms. Granillo and Dr. Gonzalez before we adjourn our work session and anticipate our board meeting at 6:30? Dr. Gonzalez, I don't hear any further questions from the board. We'll look forward to the fact page determine if we need to set another work session before we get to more of the actual and specific budget for first read. So with that, if there aren't any other comments, I turn it to you to close us out, and then I'll adjourn the meeting.
Well, thank you, President Sullivan and members of the board. As always, we appreciate this opportunity. We especially appreciate the comments and good questions that you always have around the budget. And again, and I'm sure you would have shared it here tonight, but as you reflect on today's presentation, if there's anything more that we can provide it to you in future presentations or in alternative formats, we would love to hear that from you and modify our presentations accordingly. We want these to be as clear and as useful as possible to you to best inform your decisions as a body. So thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, it's 5:45 and we're scheduled to convene our governing board meeting at 6:30. With that, it will be the same link through WebEx that we have for this meeting. So some of us may just want to go on mute and take it from there. So with that, I'm going to conclude the work session and I'll meet you at 6:30. Thank you, everyone. Right, everyone. So here we are at 6:31 p.m. And again, for the purposes of announcements, we are live captioning our meetings. Please look in the chat window of our WebEx meeting where you will find a link. Please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning. This time, I want to call to order the March 22, 2022 board meeting of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board. For the record, I will call a roll call vote of the board members. Is Mr. Evans with us this evening, our student trustee? Ms. Bittersmith?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mrs. McGrath?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Narini?
I'm here.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Present, and thank you, Jordan, for your help earlier.
Thank you. Dr. Thor?
Here.
Ms. Nguyen? With my present, Marie Sullivan, there are 6 board members present. There's 1 absent, and our student trustee is also not with us this evening. There are no substitutions of attendance at this time. And with that, I'm going to move us to Faculty Executive Council report from Dr. Sasha Radicic.
Good evening, everyone. Springtime, when a young man's fancy turns to tax preparation. Despite Benjamin Franklin's observation that nothing is certain except death and taxes, polls indicate that about 70% of American adults fear the process of preparing their returns. It's easy to understand that fear when you consider that we collectively spend an estimated 2.6 billion hours per year working on our taxes. The job is big and complex, with lots of opportunities for costly mistakes. With these worries in mind, the IRS created the VITA Grant Program, which stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. For over 50 years, this initiative has offered free tax preparation assistance for the people who need it the most, such as low-income, elderly, disabled, and limited English-speaking taxpayers. The IRS partners with local nonprofit organizations to provide this assistance throughout the country. In the Valley, nonprofits such as the City of Phoenix, the United Way, New Leaf, and Masters of Coin are VITA partners. Together, they provide the funding to help at-need taxpayers with this important service. Now, that funding is a necessary piece of the puzzle, but actually preparing the taxes requires additional resources, and that's where the Maricopa Colleges enter the equation. For over a decade, we have provided the venues where this free tax preparation occurs, with space donated by Estrella Mountain, Gateway, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Phoenix, and South Mountain. Additionally, Maricopa faculty have given their time and expertise to help fulfill VITA's mission locally, training the volunteers needed to get the work done. And to be clear, we're talking about a lot of work. Every year, the local volunteers prepare the tax forms for tens of thousands of community taxpayers, securing millions of dollars of refunds for our county's neediest members. Our community owes a debt of gratitude to Professors Lynn Clark, Vanessa Logan, Doug Northway, Mark Sassetti, Courtney Song, Annette Torrey, and Bill Weingard, along with retired Professor Jim Simpson, for generously providing their time and expertise to make this project happen. The program works. It's straightforward, it's effective, it's good. Of course, for Maricopa faculty, good just isn't good enough. Sure, VITA serves community members by handling their taxes, but what about the other side of the equation? The faculty involved with the program realized that we could squeeze even more benefit out of it by expanding the preparer training into a full-blown educational path. So, our faculty took the program to the next level. Working through the instructional councils, they created a related certificate program where the training taken to become volunteers, combined with the experience they gained from voluntarily preparing tax returns, would get students ready to take the IRS's enrolled agent examination, which would then launch them into a lucrative career in the field of tax preparation. So now, in addition to helping tens of thousands of community members navigate the often overwhelming and frightening task of tax preparation, we are simultaneously creating new, high-paying career opportunities for the student volunteers on the other side of the desk. In the business community, that's what's known as a win-win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good to know all of that. So moving on then, we move to the adjunct faculty report, and Miss Dr. Train has notified us that her report has been submitted. It's attached to a board book and she does not require speaking time on the agenda this evening. Next, we have Ms. Anna Chandler and Ms. Shannon Mange to give us the employee representation group update. Please go forward.
Thank you, President Sullivan, members of the board, Chancellor Gonzalez, members of CEC and guests. My name is Shannon Mange, and I am before you today as the co-president for employee representation. I'll be going over some many highlights of welcome, gratitude, and highlighting the great work happening across our district. Along with me is my fellow esteemed colleague and amazing co-president, Anna Chandler, who is going to talk about the many ways we can help our students fund their education, which is extremely important. We have a very special guest joining us, Calvin Duvall, who is our Maricopa MVET Affinity Resource Group President. MVET stands for Maricopa Veteran Education Task Force, and he is going to discuss all the amazing diversity, equity, inclusion, and engagement work and events happening across the district. Elsa, next slide, please. We would like to give a shout out to our district benefits office, who has been greatly assisting our employees during the transition to our new health insurance coverage provider. It was maybe a little bit of a bumpy road, but we got through it. They were on top of it, and they made sure that all of our employees' health needs and concerns were taken care of. So kudos to them and their amazing work, working tirelessly around the clock to get this service to our employees. We would like to continue to thank our district HR and show our continued appreciation for their support for equity and pay implementations. They have been providing informational town hall sessions every week, every month, and they have been extremely informative and helpful, and employees just appreciate knowing what is happening and what is going on and what will be happening with their pay in the future. So HR, thank you so much for all you do. Next slide, please. We would like to highlight an event that's coming up on Saturday, April 9th at South Mountain Community College. This event is to not only fund scholarships through their Star Gala, but it also will be honoring their founding president, Dr. Cardenas. I have only been part of Maricopa as a permanent employee for 6 years, and even though he was not around when I was here, I have heard his name continuously. He is a very important person to Maricopa County District. And so we just wanted to highlight this event so that if you are able to attend, please do so. You're not only funding scholarships for students, but you're honoring a person who truly believed in the mission of the district and the community college. He initially was the founding president of South Mountain Community College, served as the president for PVCC, and also served in interim capacities as a chancellor, a vice chancellor, and a provost for Mesa Community College downtown. Next slide, please. I had the wonderful opportunity to attend the event for PVCC founding president, Dr. John Cordova. We honored our plaza for him. He is the founding president of PVCC. He served from 1983 to 1992, and he offered a beautiful quote during this event. In building this college, we wanted everyone to be on board with the philosophy, dreams, and aspirations that we had for our young scholars. Because we are rooted in this, when students came to us, we would greet them at the door at the level in which they came, and we would help them transform to the level they aspire to, not our levels. I believe that theme still resonates not only with PVCC, but with the staff and faculty across the district. I think it is important to understand our history and see where we were, where we've come, and where we plan to go in the future. If you do get a chance to go to PVCC's campus, I hope you do go read that plaque. It is a wonderful, wonderful dedication to Dr. Cordova. Next slide, please. As always, we want to highlight our representatives across the district. Tonight, we are recognizing Glendale Community College representatives. I will not read your bios to them. They are available in our employee newsletter that goes out every month. I do hope you take the time to get to know them better. Our non-exempt council is Sabra, Sally, and Corey. Sabra also serves as Glendale Community College's senator. Next slide, please. On this slide, you will see our exempt council representatives, Ben and Graciela, and you will also see the sworn officer representative, Willie Jackson. It has been an honor to serve with them. They represent Glendale Community College's staff well and have done an amazing job. I am honored to work alongside them. Next slide, please. As requested by the governing board, we are providing monthly updates on the remote and virtual work policy implementation, and the current data as of March 11th is as follows. We have 329 remote and virtual work forms submitted, 319 agreement forms, and 10 recruitment forms. President Sullivan, if the board would like this data, we can work with District HR to get that to you in extreme detail, but it does look by the data that there are 4 campuses currently going through processing agreements, as well as the district office. As you all know, Masks and Courage protocol began March 21st in alignment with the CDC guidelines. Communication came from the Chancellor and District HR, as well as local communication was supported by the college presidents to the employees and to the students. What we ask as fellow colleagues to everyone is to please show compassion and support to anyone that chooses to continue to wear their mask. I will now turn it over to Calvin Duvall, our MVET president, for the DEIE information.
Next slide, please. Hello, my name is Calvin Duvall. I'm a program director at Real Salt College. I'm the president of Maricopa's Veterans Education Task Force, better known as MVET. Maricopa has a terrific diversity, equity, inclusion, and engagement space. And these are some DEIE events that we would like to highlight that are coming up. Spring 2022 Virtual Cultural Humility and Equity Hours for Listening. All these events will be held at 12:15 to 1:15. On April 20th, we have The Power of Words. On May 4th, we have The Roots of American Democracy. We also have some upcoming affinity conversations. All these conversations will be held from 3 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. On March 24th, we have the African Diaspora. On April 6th, we have Asian Pacific Islander Desi American. And on April 21st, we have Documented. Next slide, please. Our Diversity Advisory Council, better known as DAC, they will be doing their Awards of Excellence winners, and these winners will be acknowledged and recognized in Paradise Valley this week, Friday, March 25th at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And these year's awardees are from Chandler Gilbert, Multicultural and Co-Curricular Events. From the District Office, Douglas Kilari. From Estrella Mountain, the Title V Research Team. From Gateway, Dr. Jennifer Full-Sweat. From Glendale, SOAR, Skills, Opportunity, Achievement Through Research. Mesa, You Belong Team. Paradise Valley, the American Indian Student Resources Website Developers. Phoenix College, Arizona Career Readiness Credential Program. Rio Salado, the Adult ACE Program and the Adult ACE Team. Scottsdale, Desiree Farnell, and at South Mountain, the great Dr. Siam Proctor. Next slide, please. Also, a very special shout out to the district-wide awardee for the Award of Excellence, and this is Equality Maricopa. Equality Maricopa is one of the affinity resource groups. Equality Maricopa, who probably has the best looking logo of all the affinity resource groups, represents employees and students who identify and/or are allies, employees and students of the LGBT plus community. So a special shout out on their award this year. And I will turn over to Anna now.
Thank you, Calvin. I get the next slide. Thank you. I get the opportunity today to talk about some financial opportunities that we can support our students with this evening. First, starting off with the fall 2022 scholarship application. It is now open. This is a wonderful scholarship for students that are attending our Maricopa community colleges. It helps with not only tuition, but sometimes can also support students if they have any other financial burdens that they need to work through. This scholarship is one scholarship for students to apply to, and it shoots them out to a bunch of multiple different scholarships. And so it's just a really great opportunity for students to have one place to apply for multiple scholarship opportunities. And also with our free tutoring on campuses, a lot of our tutoring centers will help students write and learn how to write scholarship applications. So it's just a really good resource for students. And if they are awarded, some of them are for 1 year, 2 year while they're with us in Maricopa. Some are semester based, but provide that financial support for students at this time. Next slide, please. We have an awesome opportunity for students as to a campaign called Be a Student's Hero. As we know, faculty, staff across the district support students in the classroom and as they come onto our campuses and provide welcoming and opportunities for them to succeed in college. But here is a really great opportunity to also support them financially. This can amplify just a student's opportunity to have more money as they go through college and be able to save and navigate, possibly work less. It is an opportunity for them to, this is an opportunity for us to give back to students by providing our own personal gift and challenging folks to donate. Your gift will be used to encourage others to give, so that $5,000 in donations will turn into $10,000. We're just really encouraging everyone in Maricopa to either share this information or give a little bit. We know that times are tough, but for our students right now, it's even tougher. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows that this Be a Student's Hero is here and that March 24th, we can all contribute financially to support students. Next slide, please. We also wanted to provide some relief resources, some humanitarian relief resources for what is going on in Ukraine. We have 3 links available if anyone is looking to assist and support in that area as well. And that is it for the employee representation report out tonight. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good information, and congratulations to the award that you mentioned earlier. Then we move on now to our student life reports presented by Gateway Community College student leaders. We have Bruno Tawoba, Taddy Hardy, and Joe Quijada. So please go forward with your report.
Thank you so much. Just making sure that my audio is still working.
I can hear you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Good evening, President Sullivan, members of the board, Chancellor Gonzalez, CEC, and distinguished guests. My name is Bruno Tawoba. I am the chair of the Student Leadership Council at Gateway Community College. The meaning of leadership has changed significantly for me over the years. Up until a couple of years ago, I thought that leadership simply meant authority. It did not seem like something that I'd ever want to partake in. Once I discovered that leadership done well was rather more about service, that it had a purpose and direction, it started to seem more and more appealing. When I got the opportunity to serve as chair of Gateway's Student Leadership Council, my first order of business was to revisit the council's set of values, its mission and vision, to ensure that our leadership had purpose and that it had direction. Our Student Leadership Council's mission is to create an environment where every student feels heard, valued, and supported. Our vision is to, in the long run, make the student experience at Gateway seamless and irreproachable. We believe that through listening to students, effective processes of, for example, issue reporting can be created, and that an experience that feels genuinely tailored to the needs of the students is a possibility. With that being said, I'm now happy to present Gateway's Student Leadership Council's set of core values. Our first value is entitled Solve for the Student. This is our value around being our peers' voice, advocating for them in ways they may not be able to advocate for themselves. One exciting initiative that exemplifies this value is the soon-to-be piloted Advisory Council to the President. This will be a collective representing all types of Gateway students and interests, providing our president, Dr. Diaz, with insight on issues that impact the student body. Our next value is entitled Serve Your Community. This is our value around ensuring that it is not just the student community, but the community at large that thrives. In partnership with our Department of Student Life, which is doing amazing work supporting our communities, student leaders have been presented with the opportunity to participate in the recurring St. Mary's Food Bank. Also coming up tomorrow, March 23rd, the Office of Student Life will be hosting GeckoLand 2022, a day filled with fun, great food, great music, and an opportunity to witness the beauty of community. You are all cordially invited. Our next value is entitled Go Far Together. Our Student Leadership Council believes strongly that, as John Maxwell famously said, teamwork makes the dream work. We're always looking forward to one another's contributions and further believe that it is through collaboration and welcoming different perspectives that our mission and vision shall be achieved. Through teamwork, we've been able to learn, improve processes, and see the way forward much, much clearer. Our next value is do your most honest work. This is our value around our most prized virtue, honesty. We believe that it is only through honest assessment of one's current state that effective and efficient plans can be made. And it is also through honest assessment that we can take accountability and together draw a path forward. Our last value is entitled Grow. Hats off to our mentors within the Department of Student Life for doing such a great job at encouraging us, student leaders, to take ownership, taking the lead on projects, leading cross-functional meetings, attending leadership seminars. There's not one day that goes by without our beloved mentors championing our growth as leaders. Next, I'll pass it on to our co-chair, Ms. Tatiana Hardy.
My name is Tatiana Hardy. I am the Vice Chair of the Student Leadership Council at Gateway. I'm here to talk to you today about diversity. Gateway has one of the most diverse campuses in the district. Growing up, I moved around a lot due to being a military brat. I felt like I belonged, but not because of the color of my skin. Coming to campus, I felt accepted and a sense of belonging in another way that mattered, in a way that mattered more than relating to kids because we were all military brats. We have people from all backgrounds coming to study here. Within the council, we have a diverse group. Our chair is African American. I, the vice chair, am also African American. 2 other members of the council are Hispanic. A member of the Student Senate is also Hispanic. As you may know, it's Women's History Month. Even though the women in power at our campus and others aren't a part of history yet, they will be. We have 7 student senators that are female. Not only that, but our staff and faculty is diverse as well. All of the staff that lead over the Student Leadership Council are women. 6 of the 10 Maricopa Community College's presidents are women. One of the major goals at Gateway is to create a diverse and welcoming campus. I feel as though we are already making strides in doing so. I'm hoping that we as a campus and a district can continue to incorporate diversity into our campus culture for many years to come. Now, I would like to pass the torch on to another member of the Student Leadership Council.
Good evening, members of the governing board, chancellor, and esteemed guests. My name is Joe Chiada. I am Mexican American first-generation college student in my family. My major is in cybersecurity and information technology. I currently work for Arizona Department of Transportation as a desktop engineer. In addition, I work part-time for Maricopa County Community College District as a network and server specialist. In total, I have combined 7 years of experience and expertise in information technology. And I do want to apologize, I cannot share my screen. I do have content that I did want to share, but I don't think it'll be happening today. I am here to talk about student engagement. How can we improve student engagement? We can start by improving Gateway's landing page. The current web page is not so streamlined for users. I want to work with web development and marketing team to create a user-friendly web page. It's hard for new students to find all the links they need when they first start college. I have developed a new user-friendly prototype web page. It's more user-friendly by having all the first year's experience links that a new student will need. For example, having student leadership, Canvas, academic advisors, scholarships, and many others. This will be a lot more streamlined. Having this will help be more clear, concise, concrete, and complete. Why is this important to me? It's important because I was clueless to where to go when I first started college. Having this will help a lot of students know where to go when they first start college. And this is my whole mission here at Student Life and Leadership for a better user experience. Now I am passing it back to Bruno. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my fellow members of the Student Leadership Council, for your amazing contributions. What we hope to have shown you today and will continue to show you over time is a new and reformed Student Leadership Council here at Gateway Community College, a council dedicated to listening and coming up with solutions to enhance the student experience. Thank you so much for your time. I'll now open the floor up to questions.
Mr. Tooba, we don't usually do questions at this time, but I'm sure people will on the board will reach out to you if they do have them. And I want to congratulate you and your fellow student leaders on a great report and continued best wishes for your transforming of the student life opportunities at your campus. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have 2 emeritus awards in recognition for this evening. One would be Dr. Charles Walter Jr. and the other is Bonnie Loss. But as we've been doing through this new normal, we announce our names and we look forward someday to having all of our honorees together. In fact, I was speaking with Miss Macias just a short while ago before we came on, and perhaps we can have a big recognition party, Dr. Gonzalez, sometime in September or October. We've had a number of emeritus awards and other recognitions, so it would be great when we're all together to acknowledge those. We will publish the recipients' names in our Maricopa newsletter and include a short profile for the time being. So congratulations to all those individuals for this evening. Dr. Gonzalez, it's your turn. Chancellor report.
Thank you, President Sullivan, and I've noted your request to have a big celebration at some point, and we will work on that and identify an appropriate time to do so. With that, President Sullivan, members of the board and CEC and guests that are with us tonight, I'd like to provide you an update, mostly focusing on our legislative activity since the last time that we've met. And today, the legislature concluded their 72nd day of the session, and their goal of a 100-day session doesn't seem very likely at this point. This is the final week that bills can be heard in committees, and with the exception of the Appropriations Committee, they are allowed 1 extra week. This important deadline has made the past few weeks very busy for our government relations team, and we are excited to see House Bill 2017, which is a bill to establish ongoing STEM formula funding for our system. It's continued to move through the Senate. We anticipate that it will be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee next week and likely be a part of the larger budget discussions. So please keep your fingers crossed on that particular bill. We're also excited to see funding for our community college adult education programs that has been prioritized at the Capitol this year. And House Bill 2122, which appropriates $6 million for this program, is scheduled to be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee today. It should have been heard today. So I'd be looking forward to the outcome for that. I should have had that here for you this evening. Finally, we celebrate the continued movement of House Bill 2691, which supports the development of the nursing and behavioral health workforce through community colleges and universities in the state. We've continued to monitor legislation of interest to our board's Public Affairs Committee, including House Bill 2034, which authorizes career technical education districts, also known as CTEDs, to offer an associate's degree, and House Bill 2039, which sets a cap on how much community colleges can charge for dual enrollment courses. We are hopeful that Senate Bill 1374, which is a bill that addresses the community college expenditure limitation issues, gets scheduled for the House Appropriations Committee next week to provide much needed relief in this area. I encourage all of you to continue to review the weekly legislative updates that are provided by our government relations team, specifically Alexis Susdorf, and that are also provided as an attachment to you during the weekly board snapshots. That concludes my remarks. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan.
Sure, Dr. Gonzalez. The next item on our agenda is going to be the citizens interim, but there are no individuals who want to speak with us this evening. So I'm going to build on your report, Dr. Gonzalez, with an announcement that's tied to you. Want to inform our community that today we were notified that the Phoenix Business Journal has selected Dr. Gonzalez as one of this year's most admired leaders for his community leadership, professional accomplishments, and personal achievements. There were more than 160 nominations that were reviewed. They narrowed that down to just 25 honorees. That was done by a panel of judges, which included some previous winners. So the Phoenix Business Journal will recognize this achievement in the Most Admired Leaders Award special section that will be published in the May 20th issue of the Phoenix Business Journal. And there will also be an awards event on Friday, May 20th. I want to acknowledge that the honorees are recognized for their integrity, their values, the vision, and commitment to excellence. And so I am going to clap and say, yay, congratulations, Dr. Gonzalez. And anyone who's on the call, please join me so we can make some noise.
Thank you.
Yay,
Thank
congratulations.
you. If I may just say one thing, President Sullivan, I do appreciate that. I wasn't expecting that. I learned of this incredible honor today. But I just want to immediately put this back on our employees who have showed up every day since I've been in this position and faced the challenges that we faced. And they've done it with just sheer fortitude. So I'm honored to accept this award on behalf of all the employees and especially the support from the support that I have and feel from our governing board. So thank you. I'll proudly accept this honor, but again, couldn't have done it without y'all.
Well, please accept it. It certainly is an honor, and we look forward to the recognition that you've earned. And it's a pleasure to work with you, Dr. Gonzalez. So again, yay!
Thank you.
Congratulations. Very exciting. We now move to the consideration of our consent agenda items. All items under this section of the agenda are consent matters unless they are removed from the consent agenda at this time. So do any board members or the chancellor wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Not hearing any, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So move.
Thank you, Dr. Narini. Is there a second? And who was the second?
Second.
Dr. Thor, thank you.
Linda.
Oh, thank you. So we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. On that, is there any discussion on just briefly on the consent agenda? If not, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda stands approved at 6-0, noting that one of our board members is absent. So with that, we have no items on our non-consent agenda or action items, and we can move on to our employment and separations for January 22, 2022 through February 18, 2022 report. Are there any comments or questions? If not, we can move to the monitoring reports, the budget analysis report, Fund 1, general unrestricted fund for the 7 months ending 2/28/2022. Are there any comments or questions? Heard no comment. So with that, I ask for any comments from board members on their community activities. Ms. Bittersmith, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Yes, President Sullivan, just briefly. Dr. Gonzalez mentioned the work of the Public Affairs Committee, and I just wanted to, again, remind the board that we are in the middle of a legislative session, and I believe you probably are correct, Dr. Gonzalez. This may be a long one. Certainly, please pay attention, if you would, to the weekly reports, legislative reports that you see in the snapshot, as well as other reports that come forward. Your Public Affairs Committee has been working closely with the legislative team from the Community College District, and particularly as we're talking about Senate Bill 1374, we still have work to do there as well as that bill progresses. The committee follows the legislative priorities that the total board has set, and we use those as our guidance to help our work with the legislative advocates that are deployed at the Capitol on our behalf. I'm happy to answer any questions about that or, are off-site on the meeting, after the meeting, but we have been busy and will continue to be through the next month or so as the session continues. And that is my report.
Thank you, Ms. Bittersmith. Ms. McGrath, do you have anything that you'd like to comment on?
No, I do not. Thank you for asking.
Dr. Narini?
No report. I just want to encourage everybody to attend the the DOC Awards for Excellence ceremony this Friday at PVC at 1 o'clock. See some outstanding programs we have on campus to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So please join us there. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Yes, I just want to say I appreciated meeting with fellow board members at the recent retreat to discuss upcoming policy changes. I think we made some good progress, and I'm looking forward to future retreats and potentially a work session to continue revisiting our policies. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Dr. Thor?
Thank you. On March 7th, I had the privilege to be present when First Lady Dr. Jill Biden visited Intel to learn about Maricopa's Semiconductor Technician Boot Camp. And of course, President Sullivan and Dr. Gonzalez played the key roles at that event. That same day, I began my service representing the board on the search committee for the new general counsel. The search consultant is AGB, the Association of Governing Boards. The timeline calls for the process to be complete by mid to late June. And finally, last Thursday, in my role as President Emerita of Rio Salado College, I was asked to make some remarks at a ceremony where the University of Arizona Global Campus presented full ride scholarships to 4 Rio Salado alumni and 2 Rio Salado employees. These scholarships may be used for bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degrees. Each of the scholarship recipients shared their stories and what the scholarship means to them. It was a very moving and inspirational morning. That concludes my report.
Thank you. A lot of activity truly by board members, reports or not, and I'd like to say thank you to all of you for the work and contributions you're making. We did have, in my mind, a successful retreat, and what I'm finding is the development of more cohesion and also a greater understanding of our role as board members, particularly in the arena of shared governance, academic freedom, and other areas that are demand that we not only as board members participate, but that we have a greater understanding of our roles and responsibilities to the system, and want to thank Ms. Macias for putting that together for us, and certainly Dr. Gonzalez for attending with us that Friday. And as Ms. Smith indicated, we certainly are planning more retreat opportunities, more chances for us to continue our own professional development and learn from each other to help be good partners in moving the district forward. Once again, I want to say congratulations to you, Dr. Gonzalez, for today's recognition, and also to folks. I always look forward to having an opportunity to represent the board and also our colleges, and was really honored to have the pleasure to meet Dr. Jill Biden. Sometimes, I'm not always available, and I regret that I can't attend all of the activities that are put before us, but I always encourage our board members to be as present as possible to enjoy with you your celebrations and also understand your challenges. So with that, I am going to adjourn our meeting for this evening. Anticipate our next formal time together will be April 19th for agenda review, and that will be followed by April 26th, our regular board meeting. There may be a sprinkling of a work session here and there. I know we have some more work to do together and perhaps some things around policy. So stay tuned, board members. And of course, we're going to have another opportunity to discuss the budget if that's pertinent prior to our first read. Good night. May you all have a very pleasant evening, and this meeting stands adjourned at 7:14.